The time is 19:02 at exactly CAT. I go by the name Commander Cuthbert Hamombe, and with me I'm joined by
CHIMWANGA KALALA.
Looking at the stories that are making headlines today, prisoners may only be allowed to vote in the presidential polls.
Driver commits suicide after surviving accident.
And an average of 7 children are missing daily in Mexico. And now more details which are coming in. I just gotta say good evening to you, CHIMWANGA. Hope you have a pleasant day today.
Yeah, the day was great. I don't know about yours.
Mine was actually perfect. Going straight to our story today, the Electoral Commission of Zambia has announced that prisoners may only be allowed to vote in the presidential candidates in the next year's general elections. And now this story, which has actually come to us, has actually come so early, and it's actually been one of those which has actually been being talked about back and forth. I don't know what you think, CHIMWANGA. I thought as if when somebody is actually goes to prison, certain things are actually taken away from them. Things like their rights and their rights to vote. That is, I don't know, what's your point of view when you look at this ideology of actually prisoners going to be given, the right to vote?
All right, so in terms of that, we had the PRISCA, that's the Prisons Care and Counseling Association.
Yes.
So they sued the ECZ and the Constitution they sued the ECZ in terms of the rights of prisoners for them to vote. So the Constitutional Court actually ruled that prisoners have the right to vote. So prisoners are allowed to vote, and they will vote because it is their rights to vote. So I think that was settled in the Constitutional Court. But when we look at this story, the issue here is that how much preparation how much preparation has been put in place to ensure that this goes smoothly? Because concerns have been raised on how this will be carried out in prisons, looking at prisoners come from all over the country. So we have people from all over the country here being held at one position now. How, in terms of voting for maybe members of parliament, councillors, how do they vote in terms of that? So that's what they're still trying to assess. So Mr. Shindano says that they're still trying to assess how prisoners will go about voting. So they said they might be only allowed to vote for the president, and then for these other positions like MP and councillor, I think that they won't be allowed.
Well, looking at the way you've been able to express it, to say only prisoners will only be allowed, therefore, to actually vote only for a presidential candidate. That is what is actually being put on the table, isn't it? And so, do you think it can actually be a rightful way or a good way actually to go about it? Why aren't they just given like all the rights to vote, even when it comes to actually parliamentary and whatsoever? And for somebody to say prisoners are actually going to actually vote, the question really comes to say how exactly are they going to tip this one off? Because when you say a prisoner should vote, who are you willing personally, you as CHIMWANGA, to actually go to be one of those people who's going to stand with the polls there, and then you go in prison and you let people to actually vote? Would you like to stand next to a prisoner and let him vote?
I think although prisoners are categorized, I think they're just ordinary people. Some are there because they were wrongfully convicted. I think prisoners are just like everyone else. I could be a prisoner. Who knows? So I think they're just like everyone else. Prisoners are just like ordinary. Some of them are just like ordinary citizens. Some of them, quite all right, committed some grievous crimes. But then again, at the end of the day, they're still human. Some of them have probably been reformed. Isn't that the purpose of prisons?
Okay. To
reform people. So I think they should just be looked at as other ordinary citizens.
I personally feel that if their rights to vote are actually therefore being given back to them, then why would it stop us actually also make sure that they get other rights? Don't you think the argument will actually come to the public that also prisoners should be given other certain rights? Don't you think that will actually reignite such kind of conflict, mixed emotions from the public's opinion?
All right, so the PRISCA executive director, Dr. Malembeka, has been championing that cause for quite a while now. So they're trying to see how prisoners can be treated in a humane way. It doesn't mean when you're in a prisoner, you should be looked at as a lesser being. So I think that's on the table as well. So they're saying if you give prisoners the right to vote, they'll be in a position to bargain with people in power. Say, we vote for you. What are you going to do for us? Like, just giving them an avenue where they can have that conversation with people in power that we also vote for you, we're electorates. What are you going to do for us? Here's what we learned while in prison. Can you empower us in all these ways that you can? So I think this gives them an opportunity to have some bargaining power when it comes to dealing with political leaders.
All right. So I'm actually one of those people who's actually being, when I listened to what Mr. Malembeka actually said, he says our prisoners have the right to vote and have given the bargaining power to actually avenues of demanding and personal better conditions from those in power. All right. To my thought, I feel like it's too much, to say, they should be given better conditions and, and all these things which are actually coming in. I don't know.
What's the rationale behind that? What's wrong with giving prisoners all these rights? What's wrong with that?
Okay, for a person to actually, my personal point of view, I don't know if I'm actually allowed to express my personal point of view.
Exactly, go ahead.
The point is, if you are a prisoner, you have actually committed a certain crime, which means...
So don't you believe that there's some people who have been wrongfully convicted?
Whether or not they have actually been wrongfully convicted for whatever they have done, that is actually unfortunate. To just say it is unfortunate that a person can be actually found in that situation. But the fact that you are in prison, it means that things like good conditions and rights have to be actually taken away from you. I mean, if a prisoner is actually given then the rights to vote, I mean, if I'm a prisoner, then the next thing that we're going to be actually advocating for is actually the fact that we should actually be given also the right to go out there and, visit our family within a short while. In my holidays, you know what I mean? Don't you see such things actually happening or transpiring in the short while?
I think here the key point is that what's the purpose of holding these people in prisons? Are we trying to punish them or to deter people from committing crimes, or are we trying to reform them? Like, what are prisons for? I think we need to have that conversation first before.
Okay, since you brought it up, what is the purpose of somebody being put in prison?
I believe the purpose should be to reform them to become better citizens, and maybe just to deter some people from committing the crimes. If they see, no, I might have some of my rights taken away from me. Let me behave in this particular manner. I think that's one of the reasons. But another reason is to reform these people. It doesn't mean that when you commit a crime, you're a lesser being. Some of these crimes are committed in like funny ways. You find accidents do happen.
Here's a scenario. I want us to place this certain scenario. You are a child and you have committed a certain crime. Let's say something which you have committed at home. Probably you're actually watching something on your computer which is illegal, right? And let's just say I'm the child and you are the father and you take away my computer. Will it be right for you to probably ground me for actually watching something which you think is not right on a computer, and then you give me and leave me with the same computer in the same room? What is the point of you grounding me in the first place?
I think those are two different. I get what you're trying to say, but I think those are two different scenarios. Like if you ground them, that's enough, but it doesn't mean that you have to ground them in a room full of alligators and ensure that, or maybe just lock them up to, I don't know, some equipment. Do you even have to handcuff them as well while they're in the basement? Like, are you just trying to prove your power, or is there a message you're trying to send to the child? Are you trying to ensure that they don't do what they did again, or is it just a display of power that you have over these people?
Okay, so you can actually be part and parcel of this storyline by the number which is actually appearing on the screen, and also you can also head on to our Facebook page right there on live TV and place in your comment, and within a short while we can be able to actually interact and find ways in which we can actually come out to the ground root of this. Should prisoners be given the right to vote? All right, the argument has actually been placed here.
That's not even an argument. That's just a fact. Prisoners will have to vote in the forthcoming elections, whether you're fine with that or you're not. They will just have to vote. That's a fact. It was decided on by the Constitutional Court. But then how now is the question. How are they going to go about it? So like, what are your suggestions? So, and if you're just joining us, News Report is a current affairs talk show that comes to you every Monday, Tuesday and Thursdays at 19 hours on channel 112 Topstar. And we also broadcast live on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well. That's live TV channel. So be sure to send in your texts and contributions to the show. Yeah. So I think let's have a clip on
The Q.
what what Mr. Ansoni had to say about this.
Our official position is that prisoners should vote the way people outside will vote. If people outside will vote for all political positions, even them should vote for all political positions. However, I must mention and second what the CEO said. He was not sure also. He based that on the conclusion or finalization of the mechanism. So we are waiting to finalize the mechanisms to look at the reasons why they should vote either this way or the other way. And we are part of that well-balanced committee put in place by ECZ. But our official position as Priska, even when we went to court, is that prisoners should be allowed to choose leaders of their choice at all levels, because we are treating this right, the franchise, as part of their reintegration. Now, it is easier for ex-prisoners to build relationships with councillors, with members of parliament and mayors. Presidents are too busy. That is what we want. We want those people to follow them and ask them, we also voted for you. Help us, find us land, give us simple agricultural tools to implement what we are learning inside, that even outside. We have civil servants that are working all over Zambia, transferred from Nakonde to Zambezi, transferred from Zambezi to Lundazi, and they are allowed to vote for those councillors and mayors. We are talking about Zambia. We are talking about Zambians voting for Zambian leaders. We don't care whether you come from Nakonde or you come from Isoka or you come from Chipata. You are a Zambian. You are voting for a Zambian leader. You might just want to settle there because prisoners are transferred all over, yes. But when they are discharged, they might want to live where they want to live. And even outside here, there are people who do not vote for all the political positions, but it's voluntary. So even in the prisons, we should see some of them may not vote, but it should be voluntary.
Okay, so that is actually Godfrey Malembeka, who has actually been able to actually, emphasize the fact that he's going to stand by with the Electoral Commission of Zambia so that this, initiative is actually implemented and going henceforth. But my question there comes to say, why is it that the right to vote for prisoners is only being brought now? Why is it being brought now? Can that be put as a level of actually debate to say why is it being brought now? Why wasn't it brought all the way back in 2016 when the elections and the years before that? Why is it now? Why is it all of a sudden that the public seems as if they thought that they should put it into a constitutional right to say they should be able to vote?
I think this appeal has been a long-running one. So they've been trying to do this since I don't know when, but it's been, even in 2016, we had some similar issues of them trying to come up, but it was just like recently when they went to the Constitutional Court, that's when the Constitutional Court ruled that...
Wouldn't you argue to say actually the fact that it's actually being brought now is actually the ideology to the fact that there's too many oppositions which have actually come into Zambia right now compared to the previous times, and so they could be actually when it comes to the 2021 election, it's going to be very difficult, and it can actually be a political move for them to bring up such an initiative for prisoners to actually come in and vote.
I believe that's possible, but then again, when you look at the man who's been championing this cause, he was also incarcerated for about 4 years. Yeah, so that's Dr. Godfrey Malembeka.
Yes.
Yeah, he was incarcerated.
That, yes.
Yeah, so from what he said, he was there in prison. He saw how people were treated, and the stories people were telling in there. Like, they're just people like everyone else, and yet they get treated as though they are lesser beings. You've seen the overcrowding in prisons and the other things that happen there. So I think it's just about bringing that equilibrium where they can be able to be treated as though they are ordinary citizens, because they are ordinary citizens in as much as they have committed all these crimes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the point still stands that some of these crimes are petty. So just because somebody was caught with some marijuana, should they be treated in some, I don't know, almost animalistic way? Yeah, all right, so we've had some other people as well who've been against this move. They're saying it's very problematic for just the whole voting of prisoners. The whole rationale behind that is kind of complex and complicated. So I think we can have a clip we can have a look at a clip from Mr. Nason Musoni.
We had told the Electoral Commission about the challenges ultimately that will play out by allowing prisoners to vote. But they argued, they said that the prisoners had won the right to vote. And now we don't think that it's appropriate for the same Electoral Commission to be making exclusions, to be making exceptions, or to be prescribing the parameters to which prisoners can vote. So when you say prisoners can only vote for the presidential candidate and nothing else, I think again, that is discriminatory. That I think also is unfair for prisoners. If that is the case, that prisoners now have the right to vote, when you have been given the right to vote, there are no exceptions, there are no exclusions. So we think that the prisoners should be allowed to vote in the respective precincts for members of parliament, even councillors. You cannot say that the prisoners now can only vote for presidential candidates, because we told you the challenges that would arise, the complexity and the complication that would come with allowing prisoners to vote. So the Electoral Commission can't have it both ways. On one hand, you can't say prisoners should vote. On the other hand, you say no, but you can only vote for presidential candidates. I think this is raising more suspicions. This is raising more questions and answers as to what exactly the Electoral Commission is trying to achieve. So we think that prisoners cannot be excluded from fully participating in the entire process. You can't make exceptions. We told you that prisoners should not be allowed to vote, but you insisted. And now you've come back to say, no, but we shall allow prisoners only to vote presidential candidate. I think this whole thing is suspect.
I have to say, Mr. Nason Musoni has actually brought out my argument the way I've actually been saying. To say, you know, for these past years that, you know, we've been having so many elections. You know, Zambia has gone past 50 years of its independence. Why would they have to bring this now? And why? You know, it has brought in a lot of suspicions. You know, it has brought in a lot of suspicions. You know, I don't know why, you know, all of a sudden we think as if prisoners should actually be given a right to vote. You see, he has actually brought in a very, you know, the same argument which I've been bringing. But anyways.
What's the biggest concern with the prisoners voting?
You know, it brings in suspicions, just like the way Mr. Musoni has actually been pointing out, to say at the end of the day, there have been a lot of political, parties which have actually mushroomed within the country of Zambia. And that means whichever is going to be the ruling power will have so much pressure for them heading on to the next, general elections. At the end of the day, how are they would they be able to handle some of the, the competition which should be coming in at the end of the day? So that's why, when you bring up something like this, it can be a political, move at the end of the day.
Okay, but if handled correctly, don't you think this is a good initiative?
I personally do not. I do not concur with such. If it has been, in time, to say prisoners should be taken, their rights should be taken away. I feel like let all their rights, if that is, let them all be taken. Mr. Lusone has pointed out the fact to say, how can they only be given 1 point to vote?
And that
Why
was
why can't they vote for everything? When
That
it comes
was
to
just a
the
proposition from ECZ. It isn't a fact. They haven't decided, so they're still considering. It was just a proposition that they may only be allowed.
Yes, it's actually there. But I feel like even if it's may, you know, when you talk about may, it means probability. A probability of something that is going to happen or may not happen. You see, my point is that there shouldn't be anything as a probability towards this happening. Anyways, we've got some of the text messages which are coming in from the line, which has actually been displayed, and we're going to be able to read some of those as soon as possible. And if you're also watching in, you can also be able to text in with that number which is actually appearing on the screen. That's 0976599547. And just like that, as you're going to be able to actually text in, we'll be able to read some of the text messages and be part and parcel and give us your opinion or your thought of what you think. Should prisoners be given the right to vote? And if they're given the right to vote, should they only be given the right to vote for the general elections or for all seats when it comes to parliamentarians and when it comes to when you talk about the mayor and everyone else? Should they be given that right? Anyway, the opinion of the people who are listening is actually going to be very, impactful.
I keep on going back to this. The question is not should they be allowed or should they not? There's no two ways about it. They're going to vote, but then how is the question? How?
I feel like the idea should not be brought about. Anyways, the idea should not be brought about. All right, it should not be brought about. All right. Anyway, I think we can go straight to our first commercial break. And actually, still to come, after the break, we're going to be able to counter some of the stories, which is a driver commits suicide after surviving an accident. And after that, just before that, we actually have got a text message. So I'm told, let's read that text message if you can be able to pop out and hear some of the opinions which are coming in from the public. All right, this one without a name says, prisons exist to reform people. Prisoners do not deserve the right to vote. The only problem comes in when some feel they are obliged to vote for the ruling party. Human rights apply even under that incarceration. All right. Okay, I don't know if you have something to say about that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with the message. They should be able to vote. Although I think
even after incarceration.
Yes, I think the biggest concern is just like transparency, like how transparent will the voting in prisons be? Because obviously there's limited access to the public and probably people who can monitor what's going on in there. So the access there is kind of restricted. So the biggest issue is transparency and how well the elections can be monitored inside the prisons. But I think they should be able to vote. I think it's their right to vote, as the Constitutional Court said. I'm not saying it from without. Okay. The Constitutional Court said they should be able to vote. I think they should vote. The only concern is how transparent will the elections in prisons be.
Okay. Yes. So be part and parcel of this news report for today. Make sure that you do actually comment on our Facebook page and also the number which is appearing on the screen. And we'll be back just after this short break.
unasebenza bwanji wami? Chungi sakho na iwe. Pali bako ma 20 apolo ma 5 kwajali.
Mama coin sashinjira kumuzo nda
mazini. Coin songa chinjeko kubantu abale ngiyo top kwala 5 hours mamile bano leyo.
Kamba naye.
That is why you need to get an e-token, sir. It is faster and easier.
So what? The e-tolling card is a National Road Fund Agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Dalama and you'll be able to use it but get Monga Paniso. To avoid the inconveniences, so you have to start looking for 20
Introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back to the news report today, and if you're joining us, make sure that you do leave your comment on our Facebook page, that's Live TV, and you can also send in a text message on the number which is appearing straight on your screen. And we are still moving on with the news for today. Take us with that.
Alright, so a 34-year-old of Munilunga district has committed suicide after surviving an accident. Yeah, so this is a council worker who was driving a Toyota Hilux, but then he got involved in an accident.
I've actually read the story as well, and I was actually fascinated to say he actually used a seat belt. All right. What exactly could have actually led to somebody actually using a seat belt to actually kill themselves after, being involved in an accident? Was it because of the fact that he had felt that he has lost parts of his body or whatsoever? What exactly could have actually led to this sort of a decision by a man?
As of now, we don't have the full details of what might have led him to.
No,
so I wouldn't want to speculate.
The question is because personally, I feel like if I lost any part of my body, let's say my leg or whatsoever, I would want to, why am I living if I cannot walk? Do you think that could be actually
interesting?
Do you think that could be actually one of the reasons that could have led, or could it actually be because of drug abuse or whatsoever?
I'm trying not to speculate what might have happened because I don't want to get in trouble. But then I think I've read somewhere that he was actually concerned that he destroyed the vehicle, which was council property. Yeah, so I think that might have been the desperation and frustration from all that. Like, where do I begin from? Like, this is a Toyota Hilux, probably new or something.
Yeah, and those are expensive. In fact, they're expensive. But I feel like should somebody be put in such a situation when they actually destroy government property, should they be put in a what whereby they are cornered and they feel like they cannot be able to? I'm not able to pay. I can actually just better die. Is that should that be the step?
I don't think he was cornered per se. I think that was just from his own judgment. I don't know what might have gone on. I wouldn't want to speculate, as I've said, but then it just makes sad reading the actual story.
Yes, further to that, there's actually another one who has actually committed suicide as well. Is it? When it comes to such stories, it's not one of those stories which you can actually avoid. People actually committing suicide based on the fact that they're not able to actually, do certain things. Like, for example, he felt this car did not belong to him, and he thought of committing suicide. But what can be done? What do you think can be done in such a situation? Should people be, be given certain, rules or guidelines to what exactly they can do if they're faced in such a situation?
I think when you're involved in an accident like that, I don't think your thoughts are quite clear. It's like I don't think you think in a rational way once involved in an accident that probably destroys your vehicle. I think there's all that confusion, so you're struggling to get your thoughts together. I think that was probably a lapse in judgment.
Are you saying there was no way to avoid his death?
Obviously there was, but I was just like saying, like, obviously when something like that happens, it's not quite as easy to rationalize what's happening. So I think there's just all those different thoughts, like what has happened here. You don't even know what's going on. Like you're just confused. You don't even know what to do or where to start from, who to call, where to go. So I think it's just probably the difficult to understand or comprehend what just happened. I think.
All right.
That
Okay.
might have been
And,
a contributing factor.
all right. A further story which is actually tied to the same story. It says a similar story it tied to the facing financial of a man facing financial problems. A man of Mazabuka believed to have been in his 60s attempted to end his life by slicing his throat. All right.
So I think.
What can you say about that?
Wow, it's actually surprising that you actually.
I've laughed because you actually laughed. So okay, pardon me for actually laughing, but hey, I don't know what's your thought on that. You know, he has actually attempted to slice his throat because of the fact that he's actually financial problems, and he's actually at the age of 60. Do you think it's something which is actually for the sake of the fact that there may not be any funds coming in from, let's say, is it the government's problem, or would you say it's a family problem? What would you say exactly?
I think from what I've read from the story, it's a personal problem. I think problems don't even have an age. Whether you're 60, problems come in different packages. It doesn't matter whether you're old, you're young, all these problems. And some people have, let me say, low tolerance to stress and the like. So I think that's the case for that man, which is actually very sad that someone would resort to that. I think things are hard right now. The economy is doing very bad. People are struggling. All these issues come into play. Said some other life issues, financial issues. So I think sometimes it's too much to bear for some people. So I think,
okay, Chimwanga, I'll just love you to bring me down to the ground level. I want us to be able to, I don't know if we can be able to agree or disagree at the end of the day, but what exactly do you think can be placed, or do you think there should be policies or laws that can actually be placed so that we can be able to avoid such situations of where people are actually committing suicide? Do you think there's anything that can be done, you know, from the government's point of view? Because you actually pointed out the fact to say this is a family issue on your side. But do you think there's anything that the government can do going forward so that we can actually avoid people committing suicide for lack of finances or for lack of the fact that somebody feels as if he has misused a government property whatsoever? Do you think there's anything that can be done by the government going forward?
I think so. Probably there's something they can do, but I think they should just sensitize their employees. Like, look, this is just company property. This is just company property that is probably insured, so you don't have to go to extreme lengths. But then again, this is all just speculation. We don't even know what led to the man doing that. Maybe it was just a confusion from the accident. It wasn't even tied to the actual wreckage of the vehicle. But I think government could obviously do, I think just sensitization is priority.
It's the only way forward, isn't it?
Yeah, what's your take on that?
When it comes to the issue of actually committing suicide, I feel personally, for the person who actually committed suicide based on financial it's just unfortunate that he was able to commit because of the fact that he actually pointed out the fact that it's lack of financial but I feel like people shouldn't have that as a reason or a getaway to actually say, oh, this is the reason why I'm not being able to do certain things in our society. There are a lot of people who are actually going through a lot of things, but I feel like he used it as a getaway, the reason why, he committed suicide. I feel like it shouldn't be a reason why somebody should commit suicide. Personally, I feel like the other external things that may have led to that, which we're not being able to actually know about. When a problem piles up on another and another, at the end of the day, you can actually do things which are actually insane or out of your own thinking. So I personally feel like if we're going to look at it to say, people who are all with financial problems, we give them money I feel like
Where is that money going to come from?
I'm just saying, even if we're going to give them money, at the end of the day, suicide is going to be suicide. People will be still committing suicide because there are a lot of people who actually commit suicide based on different emotions and whatsoever. So I don't feel like it's going to help in anyhow. In fact, a certain point of view that actually came across is, or a person's point of view is that if everybody today is to be given money, 1,000 each in Zambia whatsoever. Within the past 2 weeks, you find that the money would have actually gone back to people who are having it. That is the people who are currently rich. Okay, so financial cannot be a reason why somebody commits suicide.
I think
it was a getaway. It was a getaway to me.
It could be. Like, this all ties into each other. Like, when you're broke, obviously you have all these other problems that might lead to some mental issues as well. Like, imagine you're stressing. Obviously, money will make you stress. But stress leads to another thing. It's just an issue of one thing leading to another. So I think this is all tied in.
Chimwanga, how many times are you broke that you end up thinking of killing yourself? How many times?
Personally,
How many
used to
times?
struggle, maybe. I don't know.
Really? Okay, personally as a brother, I've seen you broke like bro, but I've never seen you getting to the ideology of say, okay, I'm too broke, I'm going to be able to kill myself. Have you ever had that thought to say, okay, I think, okay.
Are we always together? Who knows what goes on in the background?
And this is why I want you to come out personally and tell me, have you ever thought of killing yourself because of the fact that you're broke?
No, I haven't.
It's because of what? I feel it cannot be. It was a getaway or a reason which he wasn't able to tell us, or probably he actually couldn't actually tell us because of the fact that whatever made him commit suicide could actually give him a bad name going wherever he was going. That is the grave.
Okay, for you, what's a valid reason for someone to commit suicide? Like, in what circumstances would you say, okay, this is kind of understandable that somebody would commit suicide?
Living in denial. Personally, I feel like he may have been living in denial, and to the point of the fact that as I've said, piled up problems which you're dealing with one and you're dealing with another one, and another one is still coming in, and at the end of the day, too much pressure. All right, and then you also think to the point, okay, apart from the fact that I've got so many pressure or problems, I'm also broke. Okay, so it may be just be an additional. Okay, I personally do not feel as if somebody can kill themselves just because of the fact that they are living financially
I think
broke.
this is quite a sensitive issue, and it goes from person to person. Like, we all take things differently. As you said just earlier, you said if I was to get involved in an accident and maybe cut off my leg, I think I would question whether I should go on living. I'm quoting what you said earlier. So I think there's that. So we take things differently. So I think it's quite a sensitive issue. Balanda teach Kalipachum for mwini. So you never know what might be troubling someone.
All right, be part and parcel of the story for today. You see the news report for today. Be able to text us on the number that is appearing on the screen, or better yet, head on to our Facebook page. That is our Live TV. And if you're actually watching us also on Facebook, here is another getaway. Make sure that you head on to Top Star and search for 112, and you can be able to watch us live. We're going for a short break, and after that, we're coming in with another story which is yet fascinating. Stay tuned.
usebenza bwanji wami? Tumyende sakho na iwe. Pali pako ma 20 apolo ma 5 kwacha.
Amakoino sachinjira kumuzonda
Makoino songachinjeka kubantu abane ndio top kana na 5 hours pamene pano leyo.
Kamba naye.
That is why you need to get an e-talk at SAR. It is faster and easier.
What?
The e-tolling card Balela Ndapo is a National Road Fund agency card. So all you have to do is just credit it in Ndalama and you'll be able to use it per token Monga Paniso. To avoid the inconveniences, so you have to start looking for ama 20 kwa chokula cherusha bantu so.
Introducing the electronic toll card. It's easier, faster, and secure. Access the e-toll cards from all toll gates across the country or the agency's head office in Lusaka at only 30 kwacha.
This message is brought to you by the National Road Fund Agency, a sustainable road fund.
Welcome back, and if you are just joining us right now, this is the news report with me, Commander Cuthbert Hamombe, and on my far left, that's your far right, I am joined by
CHIMWANGA KALALA.
Yes, on the last news item for today, we're talking about 73 people are listed on missing in Mexico, and 20% of them are minors. Activists are saying that a number of children whom disappear every day have doubled over the past 2 years, and there is actually a clip coming in from Al Jazeera, and after that we'll be able to tackle the issue here with CHIMWANGA.
Juanita Perez is asking for help to locate her 2-year-old son Dylan. He was taken from a market in the Mexican state of Chiapas on June 30th. Juanita says despite the media attention and help from activists, it took a long time for police and authorities to begin investigating the boy's disappearance.
I know it's not only my son that everyone should be looking for, but I know that if we search for him, we will find many other children. That's what I would like, for people to keep looking and keep coming together, not only for my son, but for the many other lost children.
Juanita's case is far from unique. Every day, an average of 7 children go missing in Mexico, and that rate of daily child abductions has almost doubled in the last 2 years.
We believe the disappearance of young children is linked to illegal adoptions, nationally and internationally. And in the case of adolescent girls, the evidence suggests they become victims of sex trafficking. And in the case of adolescent boys, we know they're often forced to work for criminal groups.
According to the latest national statistics, more than 73,000 people are listed as missing across Mexico. And just as forced disappearances have seen an exponential growth in recent years, so have protests calling for accountability.
Demonstrations like these have become very common here in the Mexican capital, and they're often organized by the family members of missing persons. And what we hear consistently from people at this type of protest is that the government isn't doing enough to find their missing loved ones.
Mexico has some of the toughest laws in the region against human trafficking, but legal experts say a culture of corruption and impunity means few cases are ever solved. Many are never even investigated. In the absence of state help, dozens, if not hundreds, of collectives have been formed by the families of the disappeared. They're on a constant search for the tens of thousands of missing persons across the country, an estimated 20% of whom are children and adolescents.
20% of disappearances is a very high percentage. And if you include young adults up to the age of 25, what the data suggests is that it's Mexico's youth that is disappearing.
Many compare the phenomenon of forced disappearances in Mexico to an epidemic that has only worsened over time. Since the turn of the century, it's estimated that some 12,000 children have gone missing in Mexico, most of them between the ages of 13 and 17. Manuel Rapalo, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
All right, that a news report which is coming in from Al Jazeera, and it is actually overemphasized to the fact that a lot of minors who are actually missing is due to the fact that there is what you call a misleading in adoption, so to say, or missing towards illegal adoption, that is. And we actually saying that the people feel as if there is a less that the government is actually doing towards, making sure that some of these missing people within the country of Mexico are actually brought back to their families and whatsoever. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think an average of 7 children every day going missing. I think that's a very scary number. So I think in a week that's about 49 children going missing. I think that raises a lot of concern from parents, and then you begin to wonder what's happening to these children, where they being taken, what are they being done with. So I think it's very sad, this particular story. I think this is very sad. Hopefully the Mexican government could figure out a way to deal with this.
All right. Away from Mexico, can we bring this down to our own country, Zambia?
Yeah, we've seen these trends, because even just recently, if you've been following the news, we've seen in Nakonde, there've been was that a 10-year-old, another story of a 10-year-old girl who was raped and murdered?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, there's some children going missing, they're being defiled. I think there are a lot of predators out there, and I think it's very important that children are taken proper care of and are protected from such individuals. I think it's quite sad.
I personally feel as if that a case of whereby somebody is getting lost is a big issue. But if a minor is getting lost or defiled, as you have actually pointed out, I feel like it's a bit saddening and so unfortunate. But what do you think can be actually measures that can be placed in position so that such situations do not happen?
I think we just have to ensure that we know where our children are and just ensure that they're not secluded in awkward places. I think if there's a crowd or maybe some family members or the like around, I think the kids are quite safe. I think we just have to ensure that we know where our children are and what they're doing, just ensure that they're not secluded or in isolation for the most part in awkward places.
But do you think as a parent, if you were a parent, I don't know if you are a parent, would you think you'd be able actually to keep your child, an eye on your child, 24/7 to make sure that they're not actually involved in such situations where they're actually, kidnapped or abducted or whatsoever?
I think 24/7 is kind of unrealistic. Obviously, you can't keep an eye on them 24/7, but we just have to ensure, where is my child? What are they doing right now? I think we just have to have those things at the back of our minds, to ensure that the children are fine. If they're going for a play date, okay, here's where they're going. This is a place. I don't think there are any possible threats here, or the threats are minimal. I think just those basic things. I think it tends to be the basic things we tend to overlook. Quite all right, some of these circumstances, even when you do all that, at the end of the day, you find your kid is abducted. You can only do so much, but then again, you can always try and ensure that you do the basic things at least to ensure the safety of your child. What do you think yourself?
But personally, I wouldn't say that. I feel there actually can be measures which can actually be put, or when it comes to apart from parents, as much as the government can have a role to this, but I feel like parents have got a bigger role to play in such a situation, because a child is a responsibility of a parent, and as much as you are trying to avoid the 24/7, of a parent not knowing where the child is, I feel like it should be something which a parent should know. You should know as a parent where your child is 24/7. That is how it may not be the fact that you're actually spying on them, but you should know their schedule. You should know.
But then children are children. They'll say, "I've gone to this place and go to another place." So there's that issue as well. Can be.
Yeah, I know. But it should be affirmatively known to you to say, okay, no, the child has said they've gone to this time and this time. I've gone to a basketball court or to play whatsoever. By the time that they've told you that they actually have gone there, be assuredly knowing, oh, okay, 17 hours. They say they'll be back by 17 hours. If as a parent you're going to wait until 18 hours to find out where your child is, what do you think that is? What do you think you expect at the end of the day? 17 hours has come. You should know where your child is. So if you're at the end of the day, you can be able to call them, then be able to call them and find out. All right, we're living in an advanced world right now where a child can actually have a telephone and you can be able to communicate. Or at the end of the day, if it's a minor, I feel if they're going out to play or, to certain places, you should be informed by a certain guardian or a parent who they are with. So I feel like as a parent, it's the responsibility, and they have got a bigger role to play. I've heard the comments which are coming in from Mexico with some of them saying that the government has got there's nothing that the government is doing. I feel parents have actually got a bigger role to play in this fight than the government at the end of the day. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think there's need for more hands-on parenting, like just ensure, double check. Like if your child says they're doing this, double check how much effort are you putting in to ensure that. I think one thing that tends to get overlooked is that most people think children are dumb. Children are not dumb. They can be conniving at times.
Yes.
They might cook up all these sort of schemes. I think it's really important that parents actually see and confirm for themselves what's happening.
And especially when they get to that certain age. There's that certain age where
especially at schools. I think at schools, parents tend to overlook what their children are doing at these schools. I think there's need for parents to one day just pull up at the school. I'm here to check what's going on. How's my child been doing?
Yes, which is actually
how often do they report? Have you had any issues with them? I think there's need for more of those things, because it's quite sad what happens at times because of the lack of hands-on effort from parents. Yeah.
All right, that wraps up today's news report. And if you still have any additional comments, make sure that you head on to that's our page on Facebook, that's Alive TV, and be able to drop in your comments and tell us what you think of some of the stories that have been covered today. And better yet, you can also join us same time, same place, right here on channel 112. That's on Topstar, and the number that is being displayed on your screen today. Make sure that you do master that one. I go by the name Komana, but just before that, we actually have to go in with the stories which were making headlines today. All right, the first story is that prisoners may only be allowed to vote in the presidential polls.
And a driver commits suicide after being involved in an accident.
And an average of 7 children are missing daily in Mexico. Remember, I go by the name of Komana Cuthbert Hamombe, and I was joined by
Chimwanga Kalala. Be sure to catch us next Monday.
But for now,
at 19 hours.
Bye-bye.
Bye.